a lawyer from Appalachia. She's paying tribute to the Hill women who raised and inspired her.
In her book, Hill Women, Finding Family and a Way Forward in the Appalachian Mountains, author and vice chair of the Kentucky Democratic Party, Cassie Chambers talks about the importance of the region and debunks some of the myths and realities. She joins us now to discuss the book. Great to see you, Cassie.
Thanks for having me.
Full disclosure, Cassie and I are old friends. Congratulations on the book. It's great to see you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Why did you want to write it? What did you think was important to put out there in the world that people didn't already know about this region?
Yeah, so I think so many of the depictions of Appalachia are done by outsiders, and they focus on the negatives, they focus on the problems, they focus on the poverty. And what I wanted to do was give an account that focuses on the empathy and the grit and the creativity and a lot of the positives and the hope in the region. And I focused on women in particular because I think that their voices are ones that are often overheard.
And so what does the D.C. Beltway, I guess, misunderstand? I mean, I think you're right. Most of it is like, oh, opioids or coal mining jobs or whatever. It's seen through a very kind of narrow political prism. As somebody who grew up there, what did you want to convey about this book and what the resilience means maybe to our politics today?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of well-intentioned people in cities like D.C. and New York that want to help fix the problems of Appalachia. And they think that they need to take resources and go in with their ideas and that they need to somehow save Appalachia. And what I wanted to convey is that there are a lot of really good, smart people in Appalachia. And for us to really be able to solve these problems, we need to focus on community-driven solutions. And so Appalachia doesn't need outsiders to come in and save it. It is perfectly capable of saving itself. And instead, we need to focus on elevating the voices that are there and the people that are doing the work already in the region.
Tell people a little bit about you, about your upbringing, about what kind of gave you this perspective.
Yeah, so the book details the story of my family, and whenever you look at sort of the plots in my life, it looks a lot like a book like Hillbilly Elegy. You know, I was born into a trailer to two young parents who couldn't afford to run the air conditioner in the house. And I was able, through the support of my family and my community, to go on and earn 3 Ivy League degrees. And so you look at that, and it sounds like this pull yourself up by your bootstraps type of narrative. But what I've tried to do in the book is really do the opposite of that. I say that this is an anti-pull yourself up by your bootstraps story, because what it really is all about is it's about how that change, the ability to go from that trailer to Harvard Law School, was not anything I did. It was something that was 3 generations in the making. And it was 3 women each who tried to do a little bit better for their family and tried to do a little bit better than the people that came before them.
And so what are the structures that are in place right now? You say community-driven solutions that you think need to be applied to the biggest problems. What are the problems that you see in them? What are they?
Yeah, so I think one of the big problems in eastern Kentucky is the infrastructure. You know, the mountains it's just hard to get around. In the book, I talk about trying to drive 87 miles from Harlan to Prestonsburg. And it's 87 miles, and it took me almost 3 hours.
Wow.
And it was because I was behind coal trucks and because the roads were winding and it was raining, and I didn't have cell phone service to help me navigate with GPS. And so I think we have to acknowledge there are real structural challenges in Appalachia that we have to be realistic about. But also, we live in the new tech age economy, and a lot of these things, if we have good Wi-Fi and good connectivity, a lot of jobs can be done from anywhere. And so that's one of the things I talk about in the book, is the way that the economy is shifting so that you know, things like call centers, things like computer coding, a lot of these new tech jobs are actually a really good fit for communities that they might not be at the top of our mind when we think about these industries.
Yeah.
So you're the vice chair of the Democratic Party in Kentucky. Eastern Kentucky was a long time solid Democratic. It's changed very much at the federal level. Obviously, President Trump found very strong support there. What is the view of the Democratic Party in Eastern Kentucky today?
It's interesting. So a lot of these counties that voted for Donald Trump by 70 or 80% actually are still registered Democrat by 60 or 70%. But people just aren't voting Democratic anymore in a lot of these areas. And we're starting to see that come back. In the recent gubernatorial election, Andy Beshear actually carried 12 Appalachian counties, which in 2015, the last gubernatorial election, the nominee didn't carry a single Appalachian county.
Wow.
And so you are starting to see the shift back towards the Democratic Party. I think that whenever folks go in and they focus on the issues that people in those communities care about, those working class issues, you know, this is an area that has a strong history of labor. And whenever you go in and you talk about the real issues that are affecting people, that's how you win votes back to the Democratic Party.
And so what do you think the National Democratic Party kind of lost those voters and is out of step with a lot of working class issues?
I think it's hard because increasingly, a lot of people around the country, Democrats, know that they can win elections by just focusing on cities. And so I think you see a lot of resources being put into urban areas. And that, in our recent gubernatorial election, our nominee came out with a huge vote margin in our cities, and that was part of what was able to carry him to victory. But it's also important not to forget the areas that maybe did vote for Donald Trump, and to realize that if you invest there, people actually do come back to the Democratic Party, and you can rebuild that support. The foundation is there, and that history of labor and that real care and concern about working class issues. It's just a matter of making sure that you're investing the resources and organizing everywhere and competing everywhere and not writing anywhere off.
Yeah, we covered that election, as you know. We covered it pretty closely here. And what a lot of the national press took from it on the Democratic side was like, look, our impeachment strategy is working. We won back this state, this red state, et cetera. And what we tried to highlight was, no, actually, Andy Beshear ran a very different campaign, very focused on, like you said, healthcare, right? Labor. It was the bread and butter economic issues and a populist working class campaign. I mean, what would you tell national Democrats in terms of their focus on impeachment and some of the conversations that dominate the news in this town?
Yeah, I think in my experience, when I talk to my family, all of which were Trump voters and live in eastern Kentucky, they know that impeachment is going on. They kind of have thoughts and opinions about it, but more so what they really care about is how they're going to be able to afford health care. I have relatives that they can't afford the co-pays, even if they were able to get subsidies to help them pay for their health insurance. And for them, the big issue is, how do I keep working at my job whenever my health is deteriorating? How do I make sure that I'm able to afford my rent or my mortgage next month? And I think a recognition of that is it's going to bring people back to the Democratic Party in these areas that they look like they're becoming less democratic over time, but the values are still there.
Very interesting. Sounds pretty simple, honestly. Cassie, thank you so much.
Cassie.
Congrats again on the book.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up, Bernie Sanders leads in Iowa, and it looks like the gloves might be off between Sanders and Warren.
Team Rising is going to join us. That's next.